Hello, wealth tycoons. Since Bernard Arnault became CEO of Louis Vuitton, the company has become the most famous name in high-end fashion. He is also one of the richest people in the world, with a fortune of about $180 billion. It's amazing to think that this huge success all began with a young man who had nothing. Louis Vuitton was a poor kid and didn't go to school, so he had to sleep in the woods to stay alive. Louis Vuitton's rise is one of those amazing rags to riches stories. But along the way, the business had to deal with a lot of troubles, including hostile takeovers, court cases, and many other issues. Even so, it went from being a small family business to becoming one of the world's most famous names. How did it happen? Stay with us until the end of the video to find out. So let's get started. The French town of Angers is very far from Paris, and it's the place where Louis was born in 1821. He grew up on a farm. There was no running water or power. Life on the farm was hard and simple. To make extra money, his mom, Corinne, made hats. His dad, Xavier, worked as a miller and farmer. Louis never went to school, that much is clear. The closest one was 6 miles away, and he probably spent all day working on the farm and never had a chance to learn to read or write. From dawn until dusk every day, Louis worked in the fields to help his family make ends meet. It looked like Louis was stuck in a life with little chance for a better future, because times were hard for the Vuittons. Things got even worse after that. Louis's mother died when he was only 10 years old. Soon after, Louis's dad got married again, but his new stepmother was mean and bossy. They fought all the time, which made his home life miserable. Louis had had enough by the time he was 13. He left one night without telling anyone and set out with the goal of getting to Paris. Paris was 225 miles away, and Louis didn't have any money or food. This was a big problem. He had no choice but to walk. He slept in the woods most nights, cold and hungry, with only a blanket to keep him warm. He did small jobs in exchange for food or money every time he went through a town. There was never enough for him to find a place to stay, so he slept wherever he could. Louis learned new things from the odd jobs he did along the way. Wood, stone, metal, and cloth were some of the materials he learned how to work with. These skills would change his life later on. But it took him a very long time to get to Paris. He finally got there after 3 long years. Louis didn't waste any time getting to work when he got to Paris. He got a job as an apprentice for a box maker. Back then, box makers made boxes of any size for people and helped travelers pack and unpack their boxes. Louis met many wealthy people who needed special bags for their trips through this job. He worked very hard for many years to become an expert at the craft. In 1851, the Empress of France became one of his fans, which was a huge deal. She liked his work so much that she hired him to make boxes and pack her things. For most people in his line of work, this would have been the best job they ever had. Imagine being a poor teen with nothing and then getting a job working for the Queen. Louis wasn't done yet, though. After getting married at age 33, Louis chose to take a chance. He began his own business with the money he had saved. In Paris, he set up a business to make boxes where he could sell his own goods. At that time, he saw a big problem with luggage. Most of the boxes were made of leather and had round tops to keep out rain, but they couldn't be stacked. It was really hard to pack them because of this. Louis saw an opportunity. He tried out different kinds of materials and found that cloth was the best because it was lighter, stronger, and wouldn't get wet. He was able to make trunks with flat tops by using cloth. All of a sudden, people could stack their bags and pack more quickly. His new idea was completely different, and it was the start of modern luggage as we know it today. Because Louis already had a good name and knew many rich people, his new line of luggage did very well when it came out. He even put together a Louis Vuitton catalog so people could look through his items and have them sent to their homes. In just 2 years, his suitcases went from being a luxury item to a status symbol for the rich and famous. All over the world, even from Egypt, royalty began to place orders. Louis was so successful by 1859 that he could hire a group of workers and open a new shop just outside of Paris. He could finally keep up with the rising demand when he hired 20 people. At this point, more people were taking trains and boats to travel, which made his customer base even bigger. No longer were rich people the only ones who traveled. Now people from all walks of life needed good bags. It looked like Louis had made it. He was doing well with his business, and the future looked good for him. But things didn't go as planned. France was getting ready to go to war, and Louis Vuitton was about to go through another tragedy. France and Prussia went to war in 1870 when Louis Vuitton was 49 years old. He was having a hard time. He had to leave his home and live with thousands of other people in a crowded shelter. He was scared for his life because food was hard to come by. After a year, he finally went back to his shop, but everything was destroyed. His windows were broken, his tools were stolen, and everything he had worked so hard to build was ruined. Louis didn't give up, though. He used his savings to start over. He was determined to make his company even better than it was before. Since the war left many stores empty, he used the opportunity to move to a better part of Paris. He chose the best location, close to both the train station and the Grand Hotel, so visitors could quickly find his shop when they needed to get their bags. By 1872, Louis had made a new style of luggage out of beige cloth with stripes. It was a big hit because people loved it. Many companies tried to copy him, but Louis Vuitton's bags were always the best, so people always chose the original. Louis worked hard in his new shop in Paris for the next 20 years, until he died at age 70. His son, Georges, carried on his work though. Georges took the name to other countries and even opened a store in London. As Louis Vuitton bags became more well-known, fakes started showing up everywhere. Georges stopped this by introducing the famous LV monogram in 1896, which is made up of his father's initials. It was a way to honor the man who started it all. He also came up with a new lock for the trunks that made them almost impossible to open. By 1900, 100 people worked for the company, and it kept growing. People worked there for years learning how to make boxes perfectly, and it still takes them about 18 to 24 months to make something on their own. But the brand didn't just make bags. Louis Vuitton started making handbags because of Coco Chanel, who was also a fashion model. In 1925, Chanel asked for a small bag in the shape of a dome just for herself. It became very famous after being given the name Alma. After that, Louis Vuitton made more famous bags, such as the Keepall, Speedy, and Noé. These bags helped make handbags stylish instead of bulky and unattractive. His son Gaston Louis took over after his father Georges died in 1936. But things were hard because World War II was coming soon. Because Paris was being attacked, Gaston had to close down the Louis Vuitton plant. The company had to work with Nazi Germany to stay in business, which allowed them to remain open while other brands had to close because they wouldn't participate. After many years, an author named Stephanie Bonvicini became interested in Louis Vuitton's history during the war. The company told her they had lost records from that time in a fire when she asked for them. But when she looked into it more, she found that the company had worked with the Nazis to keep a fancy shop open during the war, while other brands that didn't participate were shut down. Some say that Gaston did what he had to do to keep the company going, even though Louis Vuitton has tried to avoid talking about this part of its past. During the war, other designers, like Coco Chanel, made similar choices to keep their businesses going. Without these choices, these brands might not be around today. Gaston died in 1970, and Henri Racamier, Gaston's son-in-law, took over running Louis Vuitton. The fourth generation of the family lived there, but Henri was different. He already knew a lot about business because he ran another company. He didn't just keep things the same when he took over, though. He took the brand to new heights. Henri made many changes. It was a big deal when he shifted the business plan from wholesale to retail. Louis Vuitton was expanding into new countries by 1978, and they even reached Japan. Sales for the company went from $20 million to a huge $260 million in just 6 years, even when inflation is taken into account. In 1984, Henri did something very risky. He took the company public. 1 million shares, worth $63.63 each, were bought by people all over the world. When the first person who bought a share sold it, the price doubled. But Henri's next big move was to join forces with Moet Hennessy, a famous champagne and cognac company. Together, they became known as LVMH. This merger caused a lot of problems. One big problem was that both companies wanted to be in charge. Things got worse when a new billionaire, Bernard Arnault, started buying shares of LVMH stock in secret. He quickly gained control of the majority of the company. Henri's family wanted to fire Bernard after he gained control of the company, but Henri fought against this idea. This choice gave Bernard the chance to fire Henri, and with that, he kicked Henry and the Vuitton family out of their own company, taking complete control of LVMH. Since taking control of the company, Bernard Arnault has made LVMH a luxury brand powerhouse. LVMH now owns more than 70 brands, including Louis Vuitton, Moet, Hennessy, Sephora, Tiffany & Co., Marc Jacobs, Fendi, and many others. Because of how hard Louis Vuitton worked and how much he wanted to get ahead, the Louis Vuitton brand is now the best of the best. People wait in line for hours outside of Louis Vuitton stores just to be able to buy one of their bags. They've made so much progress that they don't even put their items on sale. Louis Vuitton always refused to lower prices or have sales. It has been said that a Louis Vuitton store would rather burn its stock than put things on sale. The company is a status symbol today, just like it was over 150 years ago. Thank you for watching. If you found this video interesting, click the like button and make sure to subscribe for more fascinating videos about the stories behind famous brands. See you in the next one.